The day she left for Miami, I felt something shift, but I couldn't put my finger on it. It was subtle, a change in the air, like the world had tilted just slightly off its axis. Isla didn't say goodbye the way she usually did. There was no lingering kiss, no, "I'll miss you," like the usual farewell. She was in a rush, packing her last few things into her suitcase, half-heartedly waving as she hurried out the door. It was like she couldn't wait to leave. "Don't worry, I'll be back soon," she said, but there was no warmth in her voice. Just a quick smile and a hurried exit. I didn't even get a hug. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she was just excited about the trip. I watched her leave, standing by the window long after her car had disappeared down the street. For a moment, I felt like I was being left behind, but I told myself it was just me overthinking. She'd be back, I reasoned. It wasn't like we were breaking up. She was just going away for a weekend. No big deal. I spent the first day at home, doing what I always did, working, making some food, and trying to distract myself. But that sinking feeling stayed with me. It was like my gut was telling me something, and I was ignoring it. I kept telling myself I was fine, that I shouldn't worry. She was having fun with her friends. She deserved it. But as the evening rolled around, I started getting that restless feeling again. I picked up my phone and sent her a text, something casual, just asking how the trip was going. I expected a reply like always, a short, sweet message about the beach, or the restaurants, or the fun she was having. But I got nothing. Hours passed. I tried again. Still nothing. It wasn't like Isla to be this distant, especially when we'd always been so connected. We'd always kept in touch, even when we were apart for a day or two. The silence made me uneasy, but I told myself she was probably busy. She was probably out with her friends, no time to check her phone. Then, around midnight, I received a message, not from Isla, but from an unknown number. "Isla's out with someone tonight. She told me she was just having fun, but I don't know if that's all it is." It was a short message, with no explanation, and I didn't know what to make of it. Was this someone from her trip? A friend? A random stranger? Why would they send me this? My hand shook as I read the text again and again, trying to make sense of it. Who was this person, and why were they telling me this? I immediately called Isla. The phone rang and rang, but she didn't pick up. I left a message, but I didn't feel any better. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I stayed still. I had to stay calm. I couldn't just jump to conclusions, could I? The next morning, I went through the same routine, checking my phone, waiting for a message, anything. When the day passed and I still hadn't heard from Isla, I started getting restless. The text from the night before weighed on my mind. Who was this person, and why did they feel the need to send me that message? That night, I couldn't sleep. I went over everything in my head, replaying the last few days before she left. There were small things I had noticed, odd changes in her behavior, the way she'd been texting a bit too quickly, always glancing at her phone as if something was hidden there. But I didn't think much of it at the time. I had trusted her. But now I wasn't so sure. By the time I heard from Isla the next day, my mind had already spiraled. She called, finally, and sounded a little too cheerful, almost like she was trying to cover something up. She told me she'd been busy, that the trip had been amazing, and that she couldn't wait to come back. But something in her voice didn't feel right. It felt rehearsed, almost like she was reading lines from a script she had memorized. She didn't ask about me. She didn't mention anything about missing me. It was all about her and her friends and the fun they were having. And yet, she didn't once mention anything about the message I'd received. Was I overreacting? Or was something off? I needed to know. The feeling in my gut had gone from uneasy to full-blown suspicion. I couldn't just sit here and let this eat at me. I decided then and there to do something I had never done before. I was going to find out for myself what was really happening on that trip. But how? What could I do without looking like a total fool? That night, I had a thought. If I couldn't get the truth from Isla directly, maybe I could get it from someone else. I started to go through her social media, something I never normally did. But at that moment, I had to. I had to know. There, in a recent post, was a picture of Isla at a bar in Miami. She was with her friends, sure, but there was someone else in the background. A guy. He wasn't just a friend. I could tell from the way he was leaning toward her, the way she looked at him. Her body language said it all. This wasn't just a casual night out. My stomach dropped. I zoomed in on the picture, trying to make out who he was, but the image was blurry. It didn't matter, though. What mattered was the undeniable reality staring back at me. She was with someone else. The next morning, I didn't know what to do with myself. My head was spinning, and everything felt like a fog. I had always prided myself on being the calm, logical one in our relationship, but now, the ground beneath me felt like it was crumbling. How could I not see it? How could I have been so blind? The picture from Isla's trip was burned into my mind. She wasn't just hanging out with some guy. She was leaning into him, laughing in a way that was far too intimate for someone who was supposed to be with me. I sat down at my desk, trying to focus, but I couldn't. I couldn't think of anything else but that moment. Isla laughing in the arms of someone else. I tried to call her again, but once more, she didn't answer. I left another voicemail, each word getting more desperate as I realized that she wasn't even acknowledging the growing silence between us. The rest of the day felt like an endless loop of checking my phone, texting her, waiting for a response, and getting nothing. Was she truly this busy, or was she deliberately ignoring me? I kept wondering about that unknown message I had received the previous night. Who was that person? Why did they feel the need to warn me about Isla? It didn't make sense. The whole thing felt like a cruel game I didn't want to be part of, yet I had no choice. I had to get to the bottom of it. By the time night rolled around, I couldn't take it anymore. I had tried to keep busy, watching a movie, cleaning the house, but nothing could erase the gnawing feeling in my stomach. I needed answers, but I didn't want to be the person who confronted Isla with accusations I couldn't prove. I had to be sure. I had to know exactly what was going on. Then it hit me. There was one person who could give me the answers I needed. Ella. Ella was Isla's best friend. They had been inseparable for years, sharing every detail of each other's lives. If anyone knew what was really going on in Miami, it would be her. But the problem was, I hadn't exactly spoken to Ella in a while. We weren't exactly close, and I wasn't sure how she'd react if I called her out of the blue. But at that moment, it didn't matter. I had no choice. If Isla wasn't going to talk to me, I would go to someone who might know the truth. I dialed her number, my heart racing. It rang once, twice, and then she picked up. Hello. Her voice sounded cheery, almost too cheery, and my suspicions only grew. Ella. Hey, it's James, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. How's everything going? How's Isla? I could hear her hesitate on the other end. The silence that followed made me feel uneasy. Everything's good. She's having a great time, just enjoying her trip. Why? Something in her tone didn't sit right. It wasn't just the way she spoke, it was the way she tried to cover up her unease. Ella, I said, my voice lowering, I've seen something. I saw a picture of Isla with someone in Miami. It doesn't look like she's just hanging out with friends. Is she okay? The line went dead silent for a moment. I could hear her breathing, but she didn't say anything. I pressed on, trying not to sound too desperate, but I needed to know. Ella, I just want to know what's going on. I'm not accusing her of anything, but I need to know if everything is all right. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke, her voice cracking just a little. James, I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but it's not what you think. Isla's been seeing someone else while she's been there. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt like the room was spinning, like I couldn't breathe. What? Who is it? I barely managed to whisper. I don't know his name. I know she met him at a party. She didn't say much, but I could tell it wasn't just a fling. It was more than that, James. Ella's voice trembled, and I could hear the guilt in her words. She's been lying to you. I didn't want to get involved, but I can't keep this from you anymore. I felt numb. Every ounce of energy drained from my body as the truth sank in. Isla wasn't just having fun on a trip with friends. She had been seeing someone else. The image in my mind, the one of her laughing with that guy, wasn't some innocent mistake. It was real, and it was worse than I had imagined. I thanked Ella quietly, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? Was it just this trip, or had there been more? My emotions were all over the place. Betrayal, anger, confusion. But beneath it all was a sharp, bitter ache that I couldn't shake. I hung up the phone and sat there in silence, trying to process everything I had just learned. I wanted to call Isla right away, to demand an explanation, but I knew I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to hear her lies or her excuses. I wasn't ready for the confrontation. No, I had to be smarter than that. I needed to step back, to plan. Because if she thought she could get away with this, she was wrong. Isla had just made the biggest mistake of her life, and now, I was going to make sure she felt every consequence. But first, I had to disappear. I had to get out of her life, quietly and decisively, so she would never see it coming. The next few days were an endless haze of anger and disbelief. I couldn't focus on anything: work, meals, conversations with friends. Everything felt like a blur, but there was one thought that kept circling in my mind like a vortex. How could she do this to me? Isla had always seemed so perfect, so caring, so full of life. She made me feel special, like I was the one person who truly understood her. But now, all I could think about was how she'd been playing me, lying to my face. She wasn't just at a party in Miami. She was in a relationship with someone else. The thing that hurt most wasn't just the cheating. It was the fact that she had been so good at hiding it from me. She'd been my best friend, my confidant, my partner. And now, she was someone I didn't even recognize. I could feel the resentment building inside me, and I knew I had to take action. But I had to be careful. I couldn't just barge in and demand answers. No, I needed to make her feel it. Make her understand what it felt like to lose everything in a way she'd never see coming. I started by pulling away. I didn't call her. I didn't send texts. I didn't give her any sign that I was still here, waiting for her. I didn't even look at my phone when I saw her name light up the screen. She started texting more, calling more often, but I ignored it all. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing I was still available, still hanging on. She'd already taken me for granted once. I wasn't going to let that happen again. But something strange started happening. As I ignored her, I could sense the change in Isla. She was trying harder to reach me, sending more messages, calling more often. The guilt in her voice was palpable. She apologized over and over, saying she didn't know how things had gotten so complicated, that she wanted to make things right, that this was just a mistake. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice, and she'd made it. One night, I decided I had to see her face to face. I couldn't do this over the phone. I needed to look her in the eyes when she confessed. So, I called her, and this time, I didn't wait for her to call me back. I told her to meet me at the park near our house. No excuses. She agreed, and we set the time. I could feel the tension building inside me with every passing hour. When I arrived at the park, I found a bench by the lake, sitting quietly, waiting. I watched the water ripple under the dim light, trying to calm myself. I couldn't afford to lose control. When Isla showed up, her expression was unreadable. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, pale, exhausted, and almost too nervous to approach. She stood there for a moment, unsure whether to sit next to me or stay standing. I could feel the weight of the moment. This was it. This was where everything would change. "James, I'm sorry," she said, finally breaking the silence. "I don't know how to explain it. I made a huge mistake, and I know I hurt you, but I swear, it wasn't intentional. I never meant for this to happen." I didn't speak immediately. I just watched her, analyzing every word, every gesture. The guilt in her eyes wasn't convincing. She wasn't as broken as she wanted me to believe. Her apology was too rehearsed, too predictable. She was trying to manipulate me, to make me feel sorry for her. But I wasn't buying it. "Isla," I said calmly, finally breaking my silence. "You say it wasn't intentional, but you knew what you were doing. You knew exactly what you were doing every time you lied to me. And you knew that it wasn't just some mistake when you were with him." She flinched slightly at the mention of him, but quickly recovered. "It's not like that, James. I swear, it was just a mistake. I was confused. I never meant for it to get this far. I was going through things, and I wasn't thinking clearly." I shook my head. "Don't try to turn this into something else, Isla. You were with him. You were more than just friends, and you knew it. And now you're sitting here, acting like this was all some kind of accident. But it wasn't. You made a choice. You made many choices, and I have to live with them now." She opened her mouth to speak again, but I raised my hand to stop her. I needed her to understand that I wasn't here to listen to excuses. "No," I said, my voice cold. "You don't get to explain this away. You don't get to make me feel bad for you. I'm done listening. I'm done being the guy who waits for you to come back and tell me everything will be okay." Isla's face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw the cracks in her facade. She wasn't as strong as she seemed. She was scared. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered, voice breaking. "I didn't want to lose you. I love you, James. I do." But those words didn't feel real anymore. They were just words, empty words, that couldn't erase the truth. I stood up, my voice steady. You don't get to love me after everything, Isla. You don't get to come back and pretend everything's fine. You've already made your choice. And I've made mine. She reached out to grab my arm, but I pulled away. Don't touch me, I said quietly. I'm done. We're done. I could see the devastation in her eyes, but it didn't move me. She wasn't crying because she was sorry. She was crying because she knew she had lost everything. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and now she would have to live with that. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, alone. She tried calling me again, but I didn't answer. I didn't need to hear anything more from her. Now, the real game was about to begin. The next move was mine, and I wasn't going to let her off easy. I had given her enough of my life, enough of my trust, and now it was my turn to take it all back. The following days felt like an eternity. After that confrontation with Isla at the park, I thought I would feel some sort of relief, like lifting a heavy weight off my chest. But instead, it felt like I was living in a vacuum. Empty, silent, cold. I hadn't spoken to Isla since I left her standing there, and the longer I went without hearing from her, the more I realized that I didn't want to hear from her. Her calls went straight to voicemail, and I didn't bother listening. Her messages were long, apologetic paragraphs that I ignored. I didn't want her words. I didn't want her fake remorse. I didn't want any more lies. The truth was, I didn't need her anymore. But that didn't mean I was done with her. Far from it. I had made my decision that night at the park. I wasn't going to be the same person anymore. I wasn't going to be the guy who forgave and forgot, who gave second chances to someone who had already shown me who they truly were. Isla didn't deserve my forgiveness, and I wasn't going to give it to her. But I wasn't going to make it easy for her to just walk away and live her life like nothing had happened. No, I was going to make her understand what it felt like to lose someone, to lose everything, to feel the consequences of her choices. But I needed to wait for the perfect moment. I needed to make my move, and I had to make sure it would hurt. In the meantime, I threw myself into work. I stayed out late, worked through the weekends, and kept myself busy. It felt like I was running from something, but I couldn't pinpoint what. Maybe I was running from the sadness, the pain of betrayal, or maybe I was just running from the emptiness that Isla had left behind. I couldn't bring myself to look at the apartment we had shared. Every corner, every item seemed to remind me of her. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized just how much she had infiltrated every part of my life. But while I was running from my thoughts, Isla was doing the opposite. She was reaching out, trying to make sense of everything. Her texts were filled with guilt, regret, and promises that she'd never meant for things to go this far. She said she'd never wanted to hurt me, that she'd made a mistake, but the more I read her messages, the more I felt my anger rise. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, one that she made repeatedly. I wanted to respond. I wanted to lash out, tell her exactly what I thought of her, but something held me back. It wasn't the anger or even the hurt. It was the cold, calculating part of me that knew silence was my weapon. Silence, for now, would be the hardest thing for her to deal with. And then, on a random Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. I got a phone call. The number wasn't one I recognized, but something inside me told me it was important. I picked up without hesitation. Hello. James, it's Noah. For a moment, I didn't know how to react. Noah, the guy Isla had been seeing while she was in Miami. The guy she'd lied about. The guy she'd betrayed me with. I thought about hanging up, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? I know this is probably the last thing you want to hear from me, he said, his voice almost apologetic. But I think you need to know the truth about everything. Isla isn't being honest with you. I felt my pulse quicken. What are you talking about? He sighed, like he was preparing to say something he wasn't sure about. I never wanted things to get this far. I'm not the bad guy here, and I'm not trying to hurt you, but I need to be straight with you. Isla, she's been lying to you. This whole thing, it's been going on longer than you think. I was silent for a few moments, trying to process his words. What are you saying? He continued, his voice soft but firm. Isla came to Miami with the intention of cheating on you. She came there to meet me, to be with me. The whole girls' trip thing? It was a cover. She told me she wanted to break up with you, but didn't know how. She needed someone to help her figure out what she really wanted. I felt a sickening twist in my stomach. Every word he spoke only confirmed what I already knew. That Isla hadn't just made a mistake. She had been planning this, carefully orchestrating her betrayal. So what now? I asked. barely able to contain my rage. Noah hesitated, then answered quietly. I don't want to be the one who tells you this, but you deserve to know. Isla, she's been planning to end things with you for weeks. It was never about a mistake, James. It was about her finding a way out without facing the consequences. His words hit like a tidal wave. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my blood boiling. Isla had been planning this. She had been planning to throw everything away without a second thought, and I had been blind to it. I had been the fool. But now, I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. I stood up from my desk, pacing around the room as I tried to process the gravity of what Noah had just told me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a calculated effort to replace me with someone else. Someone who wasn't me. Someone who didn't care about the years we had spent together, about the life we had built. And that made me angrier than I'd ever been. Thank you for telling me, I said, my voice cold. But don't think for a second that you've done me a favor. I'm not interested in hearing anything more from you. I hung up the phone and stood there, staring at the wall, trying to calm the storm that was raging inside me. I didn't know if I was more furious with Isla or with myself for not seeing this coming. But in that moment, one thing was clear. I wasn't going to just let this go. I wasn't going to be some guy who got tossed aside without a fight. The game was on, and I was going to make sure that Isla regretted every single decision she had made. The phone call with Noah had rattled me. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, maybe some kind of apology, maybe an explanation, but what I got was the confirmation of my worst fears. Isla's betrayal wasn't an isolated incident. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was a planned and calculated decision, something she'd been hiding from me for far too long. And Noah, I didn't know whether to thank him or curse him. He had given me the truth, but at the same time, it felt like salt in an already open wound. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, trying to make sense of everything. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Should I confront her again? Should I make her feel as hurt as I did? Or should I just disappear from her life completely and let her deal with the mess she'd created? My gut told me to go for the latter, to slip out of her life so quietly that she would have no idea what hit her. I wanted her to feel the absence of me in every part of her life. I wanted her to know what it felt like to lose something she had taken for granted. But as the day dragged on, I realized I needed a plan. This couldn't just be some emotional outburst. No, I had to be smart about this. Isla had already proven she was a master of manipulation, and I couldn't let her manipulate me any longer. I had to strike when she least expected it. I had to make sure she knew exactly what she'd lost, but I couldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me angry, desperate, or sad. So I took a step back. I didn't reach out. I didn't send any messages. I let the silence build, hoping it would gnaw at her just as much as it was gnawing at me. The more I ignored her, the more she tried to contact me. The messages came pouring in, long, heartfelt apologies, begging for forgiveness, telling me how much she regretted everything. But each message felt emptier than the last. She wasn't apologizing because she truly understood the damage she had done. No, she was apologizing because she wanted me back. She didn't want to lose the security I had provided her. And that was the problem. Isla had always been someone who thrived on attention, affection, and validation. She had an uncanny ability to make people believe she was everything they ever wanted. She'd done it with me, and now she was trying to do it with Noah. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't like everyone else. I wasn't going to give in to her charms. I wasn't going to fall for the same tricks. I was done being her safety net, done being the guy she could always fall back on when things got tough. The silence stretched on for days. Isla grew more frantic in her attempts to reach me, but I remained unmoved. I was cold, distant, and completely focused on what I needed to do next. She had crossed a line, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. Then, on the 5th day of her relentless attempts to contact me, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a new one, and the text was short. Meet me at the place where we first met. I want to talk. Isla. At first, I considered ignoring it. I had no interest in hearing more excuses from her. But then a thought struck me. If she thought she could just waltz back into my life and pretend everything was fine, she was dead wrong. This could be the opportunity one had been waiting for. The moment I could turn the tables and make her realize just how much I had moved on. I didn't respond immediately. I let the message sit there for a few hours, weighing my options. The temptation to finally confront her was strong, but I needed to be strategic. I needed to make her see the bigger picture, to show her how much she had truly lost. If I showed up to this meeting, it couldn't be to beg for answers or to cry over her betrayal. No, I had to be cold, detached, almost indifferent. I had to be someone she didn't recognize. So, I agreed to meet her. But I didn't go there to get closure. I didn't go there to hear her apology. I went there for one reason and one reason only, to show her that I was done. Completely done. The night of our meeting, I walked to the cafe where we had first met. It was a quiet little place with vintage wooden tables and soft, dim lighting. A place that had once felt warm and comforting. Now, it felt like the last place I ever wanted to be. But it was perfect. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the place where our love story had started, and now it would be the place where it ended. I arrived early, sitting in the same seat I had sat in all those months ago. I ordered a coffee, but I didn't drink it. I just watched the door, waiting for Isla to show up. I didn't know if I was angry, sad, or just numb. All I knew was that this was the final chapter of a story that had gone on far too long. As the minutes ticked by, I began to feel the weight of what was about to happen. Isla walked in at exactly 7:45 p.m., just as I knew she would. She looked the same, her blonde hair cascading down her shoulders, her blue eyes full of that same smile that used to make my heart race. But now, it didn't affect me the way it used to. It didn't feel like home anymore. She spotted me immediately, and her face lit up with relief, as if she thought this was the moment we'd fix everything. But I wasn't going to fix anything. There was nothing to fix. I didn't stand when she approached. I didn't offer her a seat. I simply looked up at her, my gaze cold. "So what is this about, Isla?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. She stood there for a moment, looking surprised, maybe even hurt by my indifference. But she quickly recovered, her usual charm sliding back into place. "James, I'm so sorry," she began. "I know I've made the biggest mistake of my life, and I cut her off before she could say more. "Stop. I didn't want to hear it. I'm done with the apologies. I don't need them. I don't want them." Her expression faltered, just for a second, before she tried again. "But James, I never meant for any of this to happen. I love you. I want us to be okay again. Please, I'll do whatever it takes." I shook my head slowly. "No, you don't get to say that anymore. You lost the right to apologize when you chose him over me. You lost the right to ask for anything when you lied and manipulated me for weeks." The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. For a moment, Isla didn't know how to respond. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked lost, like she was trying to find a way to fix something that was already broken beyond repair. And in that silence, I realized something. She wasn't the only one who had lost something. I had lost trust. I had lost the person I thought I knew. But what I was gaining, was freedom. The freedom to move on. To walk away from all the lies. To finally start living my life without wondering what would happen next. I stood up, pushing my chair back, and I looked at her one last time. "Goodbye, Isla," I said, my voice steady, emotionless. "You've already made your choices. Now it's my turn." And with that, I walked out of the cafe, leaving her behind, just like she had left me. This time, there was no turning back. The week that followed was strangely quiet. I had told Isla everything that needed to be said, and I had walked away, leaving her standing there in that cafe, trying to piece together the shattered remnants of the life we once shared. But what struck me most wasn't the sense of satisfaction or vindication I expected to feel. It was the emptiness. It was as if, despite everything, a part of me still longed for her. I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her. I missed the person I thought she was, the woman I had imagined building a life with. I had invested so much into this relationship, only to have it torn apart by lies and deceit. The anger was there, but it was also tangled with grief. And that grief had settled into a hollow, gnawing sensation that I couldn't shake. For days, I tried to fill the void. I threw myself into work, buried myself in meaningless distractions, trying to outrun the pain that lingered. But no matter what I did, the thoughts kept creeping in. I would catch myself thinking about her laugh, her smile, the way her eyes used to light up when she saw me. I couldn't help but wonder how she was dealing with everything. Was she feeling the same emptiness? Was she regretting her choices? I knew she probably wasn't. Isla didn't seem the type to sit around and wallow in regret. She'd moved on quickly before, from people, from situations, from feelings. Why should this be any different? She had a way of making herself the center of attention, and she'd undoubtedly found someone new to distract her by now. The thought of that filled me with a sense of discomfort, but I refused to let it control me. I had my own life to rebuild, and I wasn't going to waste time thinking about her. And yet, there were nights when I couldn't sleep, when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how I had been so blind. How had I not seen the signs? How had I let her slip away from me without even realizing it? But then, a voice in my head reminded me, this wasn't just my fault. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. I wasn't the one who had been unfaithful. I wasn't the one who had made choices that shattered trust. I wasn't the one who had let go of us. On the fourth day after our final meeting, I received a message that I wasn't expecting. It was simple, and yet it hit me like a truck. The text read, I know what I did was wrong. I didn't deserve you. But please, I just want a chance to explain. Can we meet? I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond immediately. Part of me wanted to give her a taste of what she had been asking for all this time. Forgiveness. I wanted to hear her beg. I wanted to see her grovel for what she had done. But then the other part of me, the part that had grown stronger in the past few days, reminded me why I had walked away in the first place. She didn't deserve a second chance. She didn't deserve to come back into my life after everything. But despite all the anger and hurt, there was that tiny sliver of doubt. What if she was truly sorry? What if she was finally realizing the depth of her mistake? I shook my head and set the phone down. I'm done, I told myself. I was done playing this game with her. She had had her chance. But then, just as I was about to turn away, my phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from a different number. Hey, it's Noah. I need to talk to you. Noah? Why would he reach out to me now? The thought made my skin crawl, but curiosity got the best of me. I couldn't just ignore this. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. Not when people were still messing with my life. I opened the message. Look, I know you probably hate me right now, but I'm not trying to make things worse. I need to tell you something about Isla. Something you need to hear. My heart raced as I read the text. What could he possibly want to tell me? Was this going to be some sort of confession? Was there more to the story than I already knew? I didn't know what I was hoping for. Answers, closure, or just another piece of the puzzle I had been trying to put together. But one thing was clear. I needed to know. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I stared at the message, torn between wanting to hear more and wanting to forget about everything entirely. I had already made up my mind about Isla. I had already walked away, and yet, here I was, considering hearing him out. Why? Why couldn't I just move on? I put the phone down and paced around my apartment. I couldn't sit still. I needed to think this through. I had to stop myself from getting sucked back into her world, into their world. I wasn't going to let it happen. I had moved on. I had taken control of my life. But then, another message from Noah arrived, this time with a picture. I opened it without thinking. It was a photo of Isla. She was with someone I didn't recognize. But what caught my attention was the look on her face. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't smiling. She was staring down at the ground, her expression unreadable. And there, in the background, was Noah, standing a few steps away, looking at her with a knowing glance. I stared at the photo, trying to make sense of it. It was taken in what seemed like a quiet park, the kind of place we had visited when things were good between us. It hit me suddenly, the same place where we had shared some of our happiest moments. But this time, Isla wasn't there with me. She was there with him. For the first time, a pang of jealousy surged through me. Not because I wanted Isla back, but because I realized that this was never going to be something I could escape. She would always have a part of me, no matter how much I wanted to move on. The image confirmed that she had chosen Noah. She had chosen him over me, and she was moving forward with her life while I was still standing still, frozen in the past. But now I saw it clearly. This was it. The last chance for any resolution. If I wanted to move on, I had to be absolutely sure that I was done, that I could completely close the door on her and on everything she had taken from me. I picked up my phone, the image of Isla and Noah still fresh in my mind. I wasn't going to let her have any more power over me. I wasn't going to sit in the shadows, wondering what could have been. It was time to let go completely. I responded to Noah's message with a simple line. Tell her I'm done. And just like that, I finally cut the last tie. The days after I sent that message felt surreal. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. It was like the weight of everything I had been carrying, years of trust, love, and pain, had suddenly been lifted. The constant ache of betrayal was still there, lingering in the back of my mind, but it wasn't as suffocating. I had taken back control. I had made the decision to let go. I was no longer tied to her. I wasn't going to spend any more time looking over my shoulder, wondering if she was coming back or if she regretted her actions. But that didn't mean the feelings had disappeared. It didn't mean that the emptiness had been filled or that I had somehow magically erased her from my life. There were moments, quiet moments, when I was alone, that I couldn't help but think about the life we had built, the future I had imagined. And it hurt. It hurt more than I was willing to admit. But it wasn't the kind of pain that would break me. It was the kind of pain that would force me to grow, to become someone stronger than the person I had been when I was with her. I stayed busy, kept my focus on moving forward. I didn't reach out to anyone about Isla, didn't ask friends what she was doing or where she was. I didn't care. Or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. I buried myself in work, and on the weekends, I found new ways to distract myself. I started hitting the gym more, doing things I hadn't done in years, things I had let go of because I had been so wrapped up in a life that wasn't really mine anymore. I was slowly starting to remember who I was before Isla came into my world. And, strangely, I liked the person I was becoming. But there were days when I'd find myself on the couch, staring at the TV with the volume muted, my mind miles away. I wasn't thinking about work or distractions. I wasn't thinking about anything except the past. And that's when it hit me again, the silence, the loneliness. I had chosen to walk away from Isla, but the silence left behind was deafening. I thought I had moved on, but there was still a part of me, deep down, that was wondering if I'd made the right decision. What if I was overreacting? What if, in the end, she was truly sorry and just needed time? What if I was throwing away everything we had for something that could be fixed? But then, a single thought pulled me back into the reality of it all. If Isla really cared about me, she would have never allowed things to spiral out of control in the first place. She would have never cheated. She wouldn't have allowed herself to get so lost in someone else's arms. The truth was, Isla wasn't the person I thought she was. The person I had fallen in love with was a mirage, a beautiful, perfect illusion that didn't exist in reality. And that's when I realized, I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her. I missed the comfort of believing in something that wasn't real. And the only way to move forward, truly move forward, was to stop chasing that false idea. One night, about a week after I had sent Noah that final message, I found myself walking past a familiar place, the little cafe where Isla and I had first met. The memories of that day flooded back to me. Her smile, her laugh, the way she had looked at me like I was the only person in the room. It had been so simple back then, so easy. But now, the cafe felt different. It felt foreign. The table where we had sat, the corner booth where we had shared our first kiss, it all seemed so distant, as though it belonged to a different life. And in a way, it did. It wasn't my life anymore. It was Isla's life, and I had been an unwilling participant in a chapter one wasn't meant to be part of. I stopped outside the cafe for a moment, looking through the window at the empty tables, the low hum of conversation from the few patrons inside. I thought about walking in, sitting down at that corner table, and imagining what it would be like to be back in that moment, before everything had gone wrong. But I didn't. I wasn't that person anymore. I turned and walked away, each step feeling like I was leaving behind a version of myself that I no longer recognized. I was closing the door on the past, once and for all. It wasn't easy, though. Letting go never is. Even when you know it's the right thing to do, there's always that lingering feeling that maybe, just maybe, you missed something important. Maybe Isla was the one, and I was too blinded by anger and betrayal to see it. Maybe she was worth fighting for. But I knew deep down that I had done everything I could. I had fought for us for far too long. I had given her the benefit of the doubt, forgiven her more times than I could count, but in the end, she had made her choices. And now, it was my turn to choose. I chose freedom. I chose myself. I began to put the pieces of my life back together, slowly but surely. I reached out to friends I had lost touch with, started going to new places, meeting new people. I laughed more. I stopped worrying about whether I was making the right decision, because I knew deep down that I was. I was finally reclaiming my life. I was finally learning how to be whole again. But then, one evening, just as I was starting to feel like myself again, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need you to understand." I never meant for this to happen. I can't stop thinking about you. I still love you. It was Isla. My heart sank as I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. What was I supposed to do with this? What was she hoping for? A second chance? A chance to explain herself? The irony wasn't lost on me. She had made her choices. She had chosen someone else. She had chosen to betray me. And now, she was trying to come back into my life as if nothing had happened. But I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't the one who would take her back and forgive her for everything she had done. I took a deep breath, felt the finality of it wash over me, and deleted the message. Then, I blocked her number. For the first time in months, I felt peace. I had closed the door completely. And this time, it wasn't just the past I was leaving behind. It was the last remnants of a life that wasn't meant to be. The next few weeks passed by, and with each day, I felt lighter. The weight of the past, the pain of betrayal, all of it slowly faded into the background. It wasn't as if I had forgotten what happened. It was more like I had made peace with it. I accepted that some things weren't meant to last, no matter how much we tried to hold on to them. Life had a way of guiding us in unexpected directions, and I had finally understood that sometimes letting go was the only way to find the path that was truly meant for us. I didn't feel bitter anymore. I didn't feel angry. There were still moments when I thought about Isla, when I remembered the good times we had shared, but those memories no longer stung. They were just part of my past, and I realized that I didn't need to drag that weight around with me anymore. I was free, and with that freedom came a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. One Saturday, as I sat at a coffee shop reading a book, something unexpected happened. A woman walked in, her presence bright, easygoing, and full of life. She ordered her coffee with a smile, and when she turned to find a seat, our eyes met for a brief moment. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt that spark of possibility again. It wasn't a rush of overwhelming emotion, but something gentle and warm, like the beginning of something new. She smiled at me, a polite but friendly smile, and I couldn't help but return it. She seemed like someone who had a story to tell, someone who wasn't wrapped up in the past, but was moving forward, just like me. "Mind if I sit here?" she asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. I nodded, my heart still a little hesitant, but curious. Of course. We started talking, small talk at first, about the book I was reading, the weather, how busy the cafe was that day. But soon enough, the conversation deepened. She was funny, intelligent, and had a warmth about her that was hard to ignore. We laughed, shared stories, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly connecting with someone in a way that felt genuine, without the weight of my past holding me back. Her name was Sophia. She had recently moved to the city for work, and like me, was finding her way through new beginnings. There was something refreshing about her, something that felt like I was talking to a kindred spirit, someone who understood the importance of moving forward and creating new chapters in life. As we continued to meet, the connections deepened. It wasn't about rushing into anything, but about building something solid, a friendship first and foremost. Every conversation, every shared moment, was a reminder that there was so much more to life than what I had been through. I had been so caught up in the past, in the hurt, in the betrayal, that I hadn't realized how much I was missing out on. It wasn't just about finding someone new. It was about rediscovering myself. It was about understanding that I didn't need to be defined by what I had lost, but by what I could gain moving forward. I had given Isla the best of me, and now, I had the chance to give that same energy to something that was full of potential. As time passed, I realized something crucial. I was ready for a new chapter. A chapter where I was no longer bound by the mistakes of others, where I wasn't afraid to open myself up again. I had become someone I was proud of, someone who had healed, who had learned, and who was ready to embrace all the good things life had to offer. And this time, I wasn't going to settle. I wasn't going to ignore red flags or let someone into my life who didn't truly value me. Sophia and I took things slow, but the connection between us grew stronger with each passing day. We spent weekends exploring the city, laughing at the little things, and supporting each other through our personal challenges. I wasn't looking for perfection. What I was looking for was something real, something that felt right. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had found it. The past was no longer a shadow hanging over me. It was a part of my story, but it didn't define me. I had learned so much about myself, about my strength, my capacity for forgiveness, and most importantly, my ability to move forward. And with that came the most important realization. I was worthy of love, of trust, and of happiness. It was a new beginning, not just with someone else, but with myself. And as I looked ahead, I knew that the future was full of infinite possibilities. No longer burdened by the weight of betrayal, I had the freedom to create the life I had always dreamed of, one that was filled with laughter, love, and the kind of peace I had been searching for all along. And this time, I was ready for whatever came next.